Hi, this is Wasim Asghar. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the US and Canada. And in this webinar, you're going to see me discussing the latest PE Power exam specification updates. If you have been preparing for the FE Electrical and Computer exam or the PE Power exam, you will see me walking through the entire PE licensing journey. I'll give you an overview of the minimum requirements that you need to meet in order to become a licensed professional engineer in the US, the updates that have been made to the PE Power exam, and exam preparation strategy for both FE Electrical and PE Power. So without further ado, let us get started. The agenda is as follows. We're going to review the PE licensing pathway, step-by-step process from education to the PE exam and all the way to the PE licensure, PE Power exam specification, some of the latest changes, FE Electrical and Computer, and the PE Power exam prep for exam success, and the resources that I offer, and how the P license basically unlocks opportunities. Okay. As far as education requirements are concerned, you if you have an EAC ABET accredited engineering degree, then you meet that requirement without any issue. About 30% of the students who are in my electrical and computer program and the P Power program do not meet this requirement. Even in the US, there are quite a few universities who don't have this accreditation, right? And then there are a fair bit of internationally trained engineers who basically pursue P licensure in the US. The good news is that NCEES has a very streamlined process for credential evaluation. Whether you are a US grad or you are an internationally trained engineer, the process is very well laid out, and with a quick turnaround, the time that really is required is in terms of putting your application together, getting the transcripts. If the language of the transcript or the course description is not in English, you'll have to get the translations done properly. But assuming that you have access to all the documentation from the standpoint of NCEES, they do a pretty good job at giving you a quick turnaround. So this is not as challenging. This is not as stressful as it may appear, and a fair number of students who go through my program don't actually have the EAC ABET accredited, and it has never stopped anybody from getting their license. You may have to do some supplementary short courses, short exams that may get prescribed to you as part of credential evaluation, but there is always a path. So those of you who are concerned about non-ABET, non-EAC accreditation, it's not a problem. Question: do you need EID certification to get the P license? No. P license can be obtained by passing these exams, meeting the documentation requirement, and EIT certification is not one of those requirements. So if you want to skip the EIT and jump directly into the P exam preparation, assuming you've passed the FE exam though, then it basically will allow you to sort of do that. EIT certification, in all honesty, doesn't carry a lot of weight outside of the fact that it signals to potential employers and your colleagues and in the industry that you're working towards the PE license. It doesn't give you any privileges. You cannot stamp, sign, seal documents or drawings. It is just an indication, certification from the state, letting others know that you're on your way to becoming a PE licensee. Okay. How long do I need to wait to write the PE exam after the FE exam? Some of you guys are sending me private messages, so I'm going to sort of answer these questions. So what should be the wait time, or what is the wait time between FE and PE? 0, depending on the state that you are in. If you are in one of the states that have decoupled the experience requirement, Michigan, Wisconsin, California, Florida, Texas, New Jersey, a whole bunch of states, New Jersey is one of them, then you do not need to wait for 4 years of experience requirement in order to take the PE exam. A vast majority of my students who pass the FE exam jump right into the PE Power exam preparation because they can carry their momentum forward and get the job done. About 25 to 30% of the FE exam carries over to the PE Power exam. So I highly recommend that if you have the time, energy, bandwidth, if you have not been burned out by the FE exam, it's actually much easier to tackle the PE exam back to back, and vast majority of my students do it back to back, typically within 12-month period. Okay. So step number 2 is the fundamentals of engineering exam. Some folks think that having X number of years of experience is going to give them a waiver, which may or may not be the case for certain states. But I sort of have answered this question multiple times. I have a few LinkedIn posts, short YouTube videos on this topic as well, responded to a whole bunch of emails that I received from my students. I'm just going to take 2 minutes to explain this. You do have the potential of skipping the FE exam. Okay, you do. But it hinges on your personal profile, your experience, and a subjective review done by the state board. Some states outright don't allow it. Okay. Some of the other states do give you a little bit of a wiggle room with a minimum experience requirement of 8 years, 10 years, 12 years. Okay. Texas, I believe, is 8 years. California, if I'm not mistaken, is 10 or 12 years. And apparently, some states, if I'm not mistaken, New York, for example, doesn't even entertain the exemption. I don't track all of these things and memorize them in my mind, but there are a handful of states that don't. So if you want to skip the FE exam and you have the experience requirements, number one, you'll have to put up with additional documentation, submit your application, and have it reviewed by a panel, and then they'll make a decision. But the issue is that you will only be limited to that state in terms of that exemption. So let's say Texas gives you exemption, right? You move to New York, for example, right? Or you take a project in New York, you are a PE in Texas, all of a sudden you're not a PE in New York. Why? Because NY is not gonna basically give you that exemption because every exemption application has to be approved by the local state, right? This I've encountered this scenario multiple times with my students. Sometimes they are PEs who have already passed the PE exam through exemption, and then they enroll in my FE electrical program. And they're like, Wasim, I'm already a PE, but only in this particular state. I need your help because we got a project here. We are working on a job in this particular state, and they're not giving me the license until unless I get the FE exam done. Or sometimes people relocate altogether, right? They move from one state to another state, one part of the country to another part of the country. So if you want long-term peace of mind, my recommendation is to take the FE exam and then the PE exam. Okay, exemption can work in short term. I've even had students who basically pursued exemption and their goal was just to get a P license. They got the P license and then they intentionally sort of came back to my program and they basically worked through the FE exam and got it done. And then they became bulletproof across all 50 states and the District of Columbia. Okay, so exemption is possible, but comes with a lot of strings attached. EID certification, somebody already asked this question, is this a necessary requirement for the P license? No. But if you see yourself having a little bit of a gap between your P exam and the FE exam, and you want a nice credential to show off and a nice credential to be added to your resume, to your CV, then it's a good idea to sort of pursue this. And it doesn't carry any privileges in the sense that you cannot sign, seal, or stamp documents, drawings, plans, but it's just an indication to everybody else in the industry, to your current employer, to your potential prospective employers in the future that you are on your way to becoming a licensee soon. Experience requirements are typically 4 years. These 4 years are the minimum. I've had many students, many engineers who've gone through my FE program, PE program with exactly 4 years of experience and they got the license. I've had some folks who had to sort of justify and go through clarifications and question and answers with the board despite having 30 years of experience. Okay, so why such a wide spectrum? First of all, it depends on the state board as well. Some state boards are a little bit easier in terms of the experience requirements. Some state boards are a little bit stricter. Okay. It also depends on the person who's evaluating your application. Can be a little bit subjective. The best thing that you can do is to keep track if you're early in your career of all the projects that you're doing, right? And always keep your resume at least updated, your CV up to date, your LinkedIn profile up to date, because then you can sort of go back and in time and essentially think about the actual technical projects and roles that you were working on, and you can basically make your application a lot more effective. Never fabricate anything, okay? But you can put your best foot forward. So how you present your application is extremely important. And then who is vouching for your application? If for every single engagement, every single experience you have PEs basically vouching for you, then that's amazing. It gives a lot more credibility to your claims. But again, 4 years of experience is necessary whether or not you pass the FE exam and the P exam back to back, or whether you take the P exam after the 4 years of experience requirement. This is non-negotiable. Just to circle back to this comment, somebody was asking how early can you take the P exam? Even if you take the P exam right after passing the FE exam, but you're less than 4 years of experience, you have less than 4 years of experience, they will no none of the states is going to give you the PE license. It's just that you have checked the box in terms of FE exam, P exam. You have to sit tight, accumulate the 4 years of experience as a minimum, and then they will basically give you the license. So the decoupled states are the ones who are like, we don't care when you pass a P exam, whether you pass the P exam right after passing your FE or you wait until 4 years. They don't care, right? But there are some states that do care. For example, New York is not a decoupled state, but right next door, New Jersey is a decoupled state. So you can, and the other thing is that you can take the exam for any state. It doesn't matter because it's centrally conducted by NCEES, right? So yeah, some food for thought. Final step to P licensure is the PE exam, and that's basically the primary focus of this webinar, and we're going to discuss the recent changes. Question: are there any changes to the FE exam? Not at the moment. The last update was a couple of years ago, minor modifications to the exam specification, but the major update to the FE exam happened in 2014 when the FE exam basically became more from a general exam to a discipline specific, and at the same time it switched to CBT. And the last major update, although we're going to go through these updates that we have in the next few slides for the P Power exam, but the last major update for the P Power exam happened in December, 1st of December 2020, when the exam switched from an open book exam to a closed book exam, much like the FE exam, where you are provided a reference handbook and you're not allowed any references. Prior to 1st of October, December 2020, you were allowed a whole bunch of references. You could bring whatever you wanted to the exam, but now that's not the case. Okay, a question. Master's degree decreases the 4 years of experience. For some states, it does by, I think, 1 year. And PhD reduces it even further, if I'm not mistaken. Some of the states also let you skip the FE exam if you have a PhD. Okay, and I have a few students in my program currently in the P Power who are two students, I think, who are PhDs, and they've been able to skip the FE. So the exemption for the FE exam due to PhD is much more broadly and widely accepted and consistent across most of the states. But the exemption for the FE exam based on experience, though, is less common, okay, and a little bit more problematic as compared to having a PhD. So if you want to do a PhD in order to avoid the FE exam, be my guest. I wouldn't take that route. All right, so let's move on. EIT versus PE. So EIT is a certification, as I mentioned. It's not a license. It is an early career recognition. P license is a legal authority, comes with responsibilities and privileges, and the byproducts or the good secondary results are increase in pay, leadership eligibility, promotions, better opportunities, consulting opportunities. You can set your own shop up as well. You cannot be providing engineering services on your own until unless you have a PE license or you have somebody on your team who would be the engineer of record, okay, who has to be a PE. So this really unlocks a lot of possibilities, especially if you have hard, compatible, very mobile skills and in-demand skill sets that are currently required in the market, and if you're willing to go on your own type of thing, okay. P power versus FE electrical. I'll do a quick review over here and then we're going to jump into the exam specification. So the major challenge with P power exam preparation is in-depth understanding. The convoluted, curveball, level 3 type of problems, abstract questions, conceptual, theoretical are the norm. Okay, that's what you expect on the P power exam as the more routine stuff. They are sort of an exception when it comes to the FE electrical and computer exam. PE exam is very, very deep. There are fewer topics, but it's very deep. So we have 9 sections in the latest specification compared with 17 sections of FE electrical and computer exam. But the level of difficulty pound to pound comparison, it's much, much difficult as compared to FE exam. Overlap between the topics is significant. So section 1 will help you with section 2. Section 2 is going to help you with section 3. Section 3 is going to help you with section 4, and so on and so forth. But in FE electrical, you're bouncing around different topics, math and then probability, and then engineering economics, and then ethics, and then circuit analysis, electromagnetics, basically going through your entire 4 years of undergraduate engineering coursework. There are fewer questions on the P power exam, 80 questions versus 110 questions for the FE electrical and computer exam. Both are computer based, so that's a similarity. They really crank up the time pressure on the FE exam. They only give you 3 minutes roughly per question on the FE electrical and computer exam, and about 6 minutes per question for the P power exam. So time is not really an issue on the P exam, but on the FE exam, you are in a consistent race against time from the get-go until you get done with the entire exam. You can see the pass rates are 10% lower, and the difference between them is actually consistently about 10 percentage points, give or take, 8 to 10 percentage points. The caveat, though, is that when you look into this number, the reason 66% is also higher, you have to take into account that there are a lot of people who are taking the FE exam for the very first time as a new graduate, recent graduate. Whereas in the case of the P exam, a lot of people take it a few years out of school. So, and for the latest up-to-date results, feel free to visit nces.org for more details. Okay, so this is sort of a quick high-level 10,000-foot view of both exams. Having passed FE exam, let's say those of you who have recently passed FE exam, and jumping into the PE is a very, very good strategy because it allows you to carry your momentum forward. And if you already have a routine in place, you've already been studying on your own, it will be super, super helpful. All right, let's talk about the latest exam specification for PE power that has made a lot of noise in 2025. Few changes. Since October 1st, 2025, we are using NCEES P Power Reference Handbook version 2.0. Some of the codes and standards, or most of the codes and standards, have been updated. NEC has gone from 2017 to 2020. It has implications. Ampacity tables have been updated. There has been a little bit of renumbering. There are new articles that have been added. Some of the articles have been merged. So you definitely need to take time in order to, if you've already been preparing for the P Power exam, to adjust to the changes between 2017 and 2020. NFPA 70E has also gone through a major change between 2018 and 2021. The biggest change is that the IEEE 1584 equations that used to be part of Annex D in NFPA 70E are no longer provided in NFPA 70E. In Chapter 3 of NFPA 70E, there is a new article 360 for capacitors that has been updated, and some renumbering and reshuffling of the tables and the code rules and so on. 497, 499, and 30B are very small articles. They are focused on hazardous year classification. Nothing major has changed over here. And NESC is the only other code that is part of the exam specification, which has not been updated. It was 2017 before 1st of October 2025, and it is still 2017 after October 1st, 2025. Okay, and they also have published a new sample exam with about 10% of the questions being updated with some minor changes. So this is as far as a reference material from NCEES is concerned, that you'll be, the practice exams are not provided on the actual exam, but these codes and references and the handbook is provided on the actual exam. Removal of the topics. Those of you who have already been preparing or had been preparing for the P Power exam leading up to October 1st are going to notice that engineering economics and reliability are no longer part of the latest exam specification. These are the topics that used to show up under section 1B of the specification that was in effect until 30th of September 2025. But these topics have now been removed, and the weightage of these questions or potential questions from these sections has sort of been distributed in some of the other sections. So please do not waste your time on engineering economics and reliability. In the reference handbook, there's no mention anymore, but maybe some of the outdated resources might still have these. And if you come across it, just skip it. In terms of the new topics that have been added, they have included logic gates, truth tables. This is the stuff that if you have been preparing for the FE Electrical and have recently passed FE Electrical, you know, one of the big five topics, one of the heavy hitters on the FE exam is digital systems, amounting to about 10% of the total exam weightage. Okay. So what they've done is that in the context of the PE Power exam, they've included the truth tables and the logic gates, but this is in the context of ladder logic. Anybody who has done ladder logic, worked with PLCs, and has done programming would know exactly what I'm talking about. In my program, I always used to get my students up to date with the truth tables, logic gates, and ladder logic. So there are no changes as far as my program is concerned. It was already up to date with this content, even more than what has recently been added in the exam specification. The three new items that they've explicitly now mentioned are battery, ultracapacitor, solar, and wind. Now, the reference handbook 2.0 has no new details on these topics, which basically means that we are going to be relying on NEC. NEC has Article 690 for solar, it has dedicated article for battery systems, for wind, and so on. So our focus in my program, which is up to date with all of these specifications, is to make sure that using the reference that we have, which is National Electrical Code, that we spend due time and attention, do the necessary practice problems, get ourselves up to speed with an increased focus on these areas of the code so that we can tackle any and every question on the exam. And this is consistent with the industrial trend. The industrial trend has been more and more towards the renewable, or sort of it ebbs and flows in terms of the funding that you get from the state level, from the federal government, and so on and so forth. But the general trend is towards renewable. And some of the more recent highest paying jobs in electrical engineering, and I have tons of students all across the US and beyond, there are three different types of categories. One is data centers. Data centers have been hiring electrical engineers left, right, and center in the context of mission critical, which is basically backup power and designing the data centers. So that's a huge opportunity for electrical engineers moving forward. And the other one has been renewable. And the third one, I would say EV systems, electrical vehicles, more along the building facilities as these mega gigafactories pop up all over the US. Okay, so this is in line with the industrial trends, and the course content is up to date with all of these details within my program. As far as exam preparation resources are concerned that I offer, I have on-demand course for the FE Electrical and Computer, contains about 250 plus lectures, 100 plus quizzes, mini exams that are timed. I also have authored the highest ranking book in the category of FE Electrical and Computer exam. It's been top of the list with 360, I think, overall five-star reviews, 4.8 by 5 rating on Amazon. And I have computer simulated practice exams in my program. NCEES sample exam, I highly recommend my students to do both the PDF version as well as the interactive one. And 3 times a year, I also run weekend live trainings for my electrical and computer exam preparation program. I do notice that there are a couple of students over here, at least based on what I can see in my attendee list, who have actually recently gone through my electrical and computer exam and are currently part of my PE Power program. Thanks for joining, guys. Then I have my PE Power exam prep program, which basically is built on the same structure as the FE electrical program. There is a self-study portion, on-demand course, requires about 120 hours to complete. Because, I mean, the runtime is about 70-ish hours, but then you have the quizzes, you have the mini exams that will obviously take a little bit of time for you to really understand and grasp the concepts. On top of that, the study guide for PE Power, just like FE Electrical, is the highest ranking book in its category. If you go to Amazon.com, just search for PE Power, you're going to see this pop up at the top of the list with, again, 180 plus reviews. This is a little bit more recent as compared to my FE book, so but still leading in its category. And within the program, you also have computer simulated practice exams, NCEES sample exam for PE Power. I strongly recommend that you do that. It's a little bit more challenging than the FE sample exam. And then I also conduct weekly live training for my PE Power program. So as far as the opportunities are concerned that get unlocked with the P license, I briefly talked about it initially. Consulting opportunities. Either you can take independent projects or MEP, and consultancy, EPC, EPCM is going to love you because they need engineers who can sign, stamp, seal documents and take ownership, because when they deliver their projects to their clients, they better be signed by PEs. So they almost always have to have PEs on their team leading a project. So great opportunities there. And if you have core in-demand skill sets, then you can start as a contractor on your own. I have several students who've gone through my PE Power program, become licensed PEs, and they've basically started their own shops. Very skilled, very focused in certain areas, and that has basically given them an opportunity to basically take on the clients and start their own thing. Okay, signing off authority. Signing off authority is a legal responsibility for design engineering design firms, and obviously, when you're a lead engineer, you get the privilege and the responsibility to be able to sign and seal and stamp the drawings. Higher salaries, you can look at several surveys that are conducted by IEEE, by National Society of Professional Engineers all across the US. And even anecdotally, you're going to find that you can be doing the same job as a PE is doing, and the PE is going to be making at least 20, 30, up to 40% more than what you are. Is it fair? Is it unfair? It depends how you look at it. When you go through this process of becoming a PE, you realize how challenging things are. And also, the PE is taking responsibility and liability for the signing and stamping and approving the documents. So, with the increased powers come greater responsibilities, right? Spider-Man. So that's basically what it is. But if you have a passion for the profession, you will not should not shy away from taking more responsibility. Just make sure that you're competent and you're continuously upskilling yourself. Okay, leadership roles. When you have the credibility and you have the credentials, then the employers, your clients are going to respect you a lot more and give you the decision making roles, okay, opportunities. So these are all the good things. Job security and mobility. The economy can be going left, right, top, bottom. The fact of the matter is that PEs are the last ones to leave. Okay, that's a fact. A lot of you probably have already experienced this in your career, that when it comes to the proverbial chopping board, PEs are the last one to worry about layoffs. Okay, so this gives you a lot of job security, because the fact of the matter is that in the open market, it is very, very difficult to poach PEs. In order to attract a PE from a competitor, you have to pay them top dollar. That's the reason why a lot of employers are willing to invest in the career development of their junior engineers, intermediate engineers, and even senior engineers who don't have the PE license. Because when you get a PE license, the employer can keep you happy by giving you a 10% salary increase, 15% salary increase, because they already know that you are sort of, committed, entrenched in the organization. You have friends, you have colleagues, you have network, you have a reputation, right? You have a comfort zone, so to speak. Okay. But if company XYZ wants to poach you, then they have to sort of pay you top dollar, because it's not only the salary increase, it's also the fact that you're going to be stepping out of your comfort zone. Okay, so then the numbers become 25%, 30%, 35, 40. I recently just had the student who passed the P Power exam making a move to a different company, and he negotiated 45% salary increase in one move. Okay. And that's actually on H1B. So if you are a US citizen green card, it makes your mobility a lot more easier as well. Question: do you know of anyone who has successfully had their international experience not under a USPE but a local professional engineer verified and accepted? Tons and tons of examples. So it's your entire application that they look at, Leo, not just one engagement. And it really depends from state to state. I'll quickly answer this question and give you guys three scenarios. Scenario number one is examples of states that just require three PE references, okay, regardless of when you worked with them. Okay, so you hypothetically could have 10 years of international experience outside the US, and you're currently working at your current job for a couple of years, less than 4 years or 4 years or whatever it is, and you know 20 PEs at your current work place, but you knew zero electrical PE or US PE outside. Some states allow for that. Some states want every single PE to be an electrical engineer. Others are like, we don't care about the discipline. Some states want all the references just from your supervisors. Okay. Others don't care. It could be your team member, it could be your client on a project, a project manager, or a contractor. So it really depends from state to state, and it also depends on how you actually put your application together. That is something that is very, very much underestimated by a lot of engineers. And some cases I've seen even a US grad, 30 years of experience in the industry, applying for a PE license, and then ends up in, clarifications, questions from the board, verifying the experience and whatnot. I've even seen internationally trained engineers with just about 4 years of experience, bare minimum number of PEs and application sails through without any issues. So there is a level of subjectivity involved, and also how you present your experience. Never fabricate anything. Always be honest and truthful, but do take your due time in putting together a nice, polished application. Don't assume that the reader is gonna try and give you the benefit of doubt and connect the dots for you. It's your job to be persuasive. Does that answer the question? I hope it does. The recording will be shared. I'll upload it shortly. I have a couple of more slides to go. We'll try and wrap this up quickly for you guys if you have to get going. All right, student testimonials. As you can see, I already have a couple of students in attendance right now, and thank you for your comments, appreciation. You guys probably came across this webinar or heard about my program or my name on YouTube, Reddit, LinkedIn, Amazon, Google, Facebook, Instagram. I even have some students who've actually mentioned my name on TikTok, although I have zero presence on that particular platform. But every week, students are posting their success stories, tagging me across different platforms. So I've been doing this for come November 2025, next month, it'll be 10 years. I've been doing this for 10 years. The study guide for my FE Electrical was published in 2015, 13th of November. So my 10th year anniversary of being engaged with FE Electrical and P Power Prep is coming up next month. Okay. I have tons of success stories on my YouTube channel. Feel free to check these out. They are real engineers. Sometimes half an hour long session, overviews. And if you're serious about your FE Electrical and Computer exam preparation or the P Power exam preparation, then starting early is the way to go. Because the more runtime you give yourself, the more teeth you'll be able to you'll be able to absorb the content and bite your teeth into the content much more effectively. In this day and age, there is no shortage of knowledge, right? But sometimes spending a little bit of time, energy, and investing in a guided tour can make the journey a little bit more enjoyable, fun, and easier to follow. I'm going to quickly share my screen and switch gears over here just to give you guys an inside view of how the program looks like. I'm going to use the example of my P Power program because that's what the webinar is titled as. So this is what the on-demand looks like, right? October 1st, 2025 changes the name of the webinar. So I have an entire dedicated section that you guys can see over here explaining you what are the changes like, what's new in the handbook, topics that have been removed, topics that have been added, how we go about the P Power exam preparation using a level 3 understanding. The new format of the exam is 9 sections compared to 4 sections, which is the old format. And you're going to see that everything is up to date. I have quizzes that are easy and then quizzes that are difficult, intentionally designed to give you a whole spectrum of practice problems and topics such as instrument transformers, which do not show up in the reference handbook. By the way, I forgot to mention the P Power reference handbook has a lot of omissions. So much so that an entire section titled as protection, I'm just going to go all the way to the bottom over here and show you section number 9, arguably one of the most technical sections in the entire exam specification. When you open the reference handbook, there is nothing in the reference handbook. And I have about 15 to 20 lecture part series on this particular section, so much so that I've had folks who are seasoned protection and control engineers with 10, 15, up to 20 years of experience. they've gone through this stuff and they're like, Wasim, this was so refreshing. And despite being in the industry for over a decade, we actually learned how to properly size the CTs. We understood what the burden calculations are, why it's important. And recently, I had a student. He was on the field and troubleshooting something. A former student of mine passed his PE exam, and he was like, Wasim, I was troubleshooting, and we were having this PNC issue. And your comment came to my mind when you're like, if your relays are not reading properly and not operating properly, sometimes the problem can actually be in an undersized CT. Because if your current transformer is undersized, it saturates. And saturated CT is like flying blind. It cannot see anything and you cannot rely on it. He said that on the site, he did a quick calculation to figure out roughly what the burden of the CT is and estimated what the burden was connected to the CT, and the client was blown away because everybody was sort of looking at wiring, everybody was looking at the relay settings, the programming, and this and that. No one was paying attention to the CTs, right? Looking at the single line diagram, whether the CTs are properly sized or not. And when he explained it to the client was blown away in terms of the practical, and he especially thanked me for that bit of knowledge. And the program that I have put together, guys, it's more than just there to help you pass the P Power exam. Okay. Masterclass, these are crash course style summaries of what I basically have covered in the on-demand. A lot of students, this is about 29 hours of content. A lot of students use the masterclass in order to prepare and consolidate the knowledge a couple of weeks before the exam. And then I have the live training program. Every week we meet a couple of times. I run the live training program 3 times a year. Anybody who joins the 6-month live training program right now gets access to my current round of live training as well as the January to March winter 2026 live training. This is a structured 12-week program. Next week, we're going to be doing circuit analysis, 3-phase per unit system, symmetrical components. If you miss any session, not a big deal. You can always catch up with the recordings. And about 30% of my students actually watch these live training sessions asynchronously. The live training session is not just me sort of rehashing everything that's in the on-demand. As part of the live training session, for example, in NEC that we conducted a couple of weeks ago, I give you additional homework assignments based on the latest NEC edition. And then there are detailed solutions, changes that have basically been made, 1-page PDF summaries of every single lecture. And you can actually walk through the recording of the live training session as well as detailed solutions that I offer. Every week I have students, testimonials, as I showed you guys already. A whole bunch of my students took the exam in the last couple of weeks. And this just came up yesterday. Okay, the student passed the exam back to back. He's saying passed with 0 experience on the first attempt, FE and PE. And he makes a comment that when he came across the very first lecture, CTs and VTs, and he was thinking that I have no idea what these things are because his experience was not in power systems. He's an electronics engineer. And then by the time he was done with the program, feeling confident and passed the exam in the first attempt. Tons and tons of stories over here. Passed the PE Power exam on the first attempt. As FE, PE. A lot of students took the PE exam very recently because they wanted to, for whatever reason, they were concerned about the new updates. But yeah, so every week there are multiple stories. So these are on my course community. I actually forgot to mention, when you sign up for my program, you get access to my exclusive course community, which is moderated by my teaching assistants. If you ever have any question, you can take a screenshot, submit a question, and then you're going to get a very detailed response from my TAs within 12 hours on average. And the entire community is organized based on the sections on the exam. So you can ask specific questions under specific sections, and rest assured that it's going to be promptly responded. You can find tons and tons of reviews on LinkedIn. So testimonial.to is where automatically all the LinkedIn reviews are pulled, and you can cross-verify all of these LinkedIn reviews. Let's see, like these are the ones that just came up. So let's see. So these are the ones that just came up a couple of days ago, and they're at the top. So social validation, social proof. Maybe a lot of you are over here based on the reference and referral, or somebody has mentioned you my program and this or that. So if you are interested in going through this and want me to assist you with your FE electrical prep, the P Power prep, feel free to visit my website, StudyForFE.com, and you can click on FE electrical. When you click on FE electrical, The pricing plans are very similar in the sense that for the FE Electrical and Computer Exam Preparation Program, I have the monthly access. I have the 3-month access just to the on-demand and the 6-month access. And then for the P Power program, I have 6-month as well as 12-month because the P Power sometimes takes a little bit more time and effort to prepare for. Thanks for your attention. And if you are interested in the program, I'd love to see you in the program. I do a one-on-one onboarding with every single student of mine. If you know of anybody else within your network who might be interested, kindly let them know. And have yourself a good weekend, guys. Thank you. Bye.